The notification lit up my phone screen at exactly 2:47 a.m. A text message, but not to me. To someone named Madison from my fiancé Trevor's phone, accidentally sent to our shared cloud account instead. Thank God I'm upgrading. Wedding's just the exit strategy from basic to premium. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I stared at those words in the darkness of our bedroom, Trevor's soft snoring beside me, a soundtrack to my world quietly imploding. The phone's blue light cast shadows across the ceiling as I read it again and again. My hands weren't shaking yet. That would come later. Right now, there was only the cold, crystalline clarity that comes in the moment before everything shatters. I screenshot the message. Then I opened the cloud sync settings and disabled his access, quietly, efficiently. 12 more messages loaded before the connection severed. I read each one with the detached focus of a surgeon examining x-rays. The wedding venue? All her dad's money. Finally cashing in on that trust fund princess. Madison, babe, you know this is temporary. 6 months married, then divorce with the prenup loophole. My lawyers got it figured. She actually thinks I love her. It's almost sad. The messages went back 3 months. 3 months of planning our dream wedding while Trevor planned his dream con. I set the phone down carefully on the nightstand, screen side down, and stared at the ceiling. The engagement ring on my finger suddenly felt like a shackle. Here's what Trevor didn't know. I wasn't a trust fund princess. I was a trust fund empress. My father, Richard Chen, had built Chen Capital from a single storefront investment office into a private equity powerhouse managing $42 billion in assets. When he died 2 years ago, he left everything to me. His only child, his protege, his mirror image in stubbornness and strategy. But he'd also left me with his most valuable lesson. Sophia, sharks can smell blood in the water. Never let them see you bleeding. So I didn't. To the world, to Trevor, to everyone except my father's inner circle of advisors, I was just Sophia, the quiet girl with a modest marketing job, a small apartment in Brooklyn, and a sensible Honda Civic. I'd learned from watching my mother get torn apart by gold diggers after my father's first fortune. I'd learned from my own disastrous relationship in college with someone who'd loved my potential inheritance more than me. When I met Trevor at a friend's rooftop party 18 months ago, I'd already made the decision. This time, I would know for certain if someone loved me or loved my money. So I became someone who didn't have money to love. Trevor had been charming that night. Tall, confident, working in commercial real estate development. He'd talked about his projects, his ambitions, his 5-year plan. I'd played the part of the impressed audience, the sweet girl who worked in social media management and split rent with 2 roommates. "You're different," he'd said on our 3rd date, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "You're not like these superficial women who only care about status and money. You're real." I'd smiled, believing him, wanting to believe him. The relationship had moved quickly. Too quickly, I realized now. 6 months in, he'd proposed at a restaurant I'd had to pretend was outside my budget. The ring was modest, which he'd framed as meaningful rather than cheap. I'd said yes because I thought I'd finally found someone who loved me for me. What a fool I'd been. Now, lying in the darkness next to the man who was planning to exploit and abandon me, I began to plan. Not revenge. That was too simple, too emotional. No, what I was planning was justice. Precision justice, delivered with the same cold efficiency my father had taught me in the boardroom. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my laptop, and moved to the living room of Trevor's apartment. He'd insisted I stay over most nights, said he loved falling asleep next to me. Now I understood. He was maintaining control, keeping tabs on his investment. The apartment was nice, too nice for his claimed salary. I'd noticed that before but had dismissed my suspicions, not wanting to be paranoid. Now I opened my laptop and started digging. By 4:30 a.m., I had my first revelation. Trevor's commercial real estate company, failing, hemorrhaging money, 3 projects underwater, investors circling, and Trevor personally liable for nearly $2 million in bad deals. His expensive watch, his luxury car, his tailored suits, all financed on credit cards and loans he couldn't possibly repay. By 5 a.m., I found Madison Pierce, a real estate attorney who'd worked on one of Trevor's deals. Pretty, ambitious, and apparently in on the scheme. Their messages made it clear. They'd been together for 5 months, overlapping with our engagement by 2 months. She knew about me. She knew about the plan. She was waiting for her cut. By 5:30 a.m., I'd found the prenup he'd mentioned. His lawyer had drafted it, not mine. Red flag I'd stupidly ignored because Trevor had seemed embarrassed about even suggesting one. "Just a formality," he'd said. "My lawyer says everyone does it now." I'd signed it without sending it to my own legal team, not wanting to reveal I had a legal team to send it to. The prenup was a masterpiece of exploitation. It protected Trevor's business assets while leaving my supposed savings vulnerable in the divorce. What Trevor didn't know was that my savings consisted of about $8,000 in a checking account. My real assets, the $42 billion empire, weren't even in my name. They were in a web of trusts and holding companies that would take forensic accountants years to untangle. By 6 a.m., when the first light started creeping through the windows, I had a plan. Trevor woke at 7:15, his alarm chirping cheerfully. I was already dressed, makeup perfect, coffee brewing in the kitchen. "Morning, babe," he mumbled, stumbling toward the bathroom. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said, which was true. Too excited about the venue walkthrough today. The venue walkthrough at the Plaza Hotel, where 150 of our closest friends and family were supposed to celebrate our love in 3 months. The venue my father's life insurance policy was supposedly paying for, Trevor's understanding of my fictional finances. Right, the venue thing. Trevor emerged from the bathroom, running a hand through his hair. "Listen, about that. I was thinking we should maybe scale back a bit. The plaza is pretty expensive." "Scale back?" I kept my voice light, curious. "But you said you loved the plaza. You said it was perfect." I do. It's just, we should be practical. Start our marriage smart, financially." He was pulling on his suit, not meeting my eyes. Maybe somewhere smaller, more intimate. Translation: Madison had looked at the numbers and realized the plaza deposit was already paid and non-refundable. They were trying to redirect that money somewhere they could access it. "Whatever you think is best," I said softly, playing my role. Inside, I was adding another line to my mental list. "You're probably right. We should be sensible." His relief was visible. "Exactly. See, this is why I love you. You're so understanding." I smiled and poured him coffee. "I'll call the venue and see about canceling." "You're amazing," he said, kissing my forehead. The same lips that had been texting Madison hours ago. I didn't flinch. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. After Trevor left for work, I sat in his apartment and made a series of calls. First, to my actual lawyer, James Mackenzie, who'd been my father's right hand for 30 years. "Sophia," James answered immediately. He was always awake by 6 a.m., had been for decades. It's early. What's wrong? I told him everything. The messages, the scheme, Madison, the prenup. James listened in silence, and I could practically hear him shifting into combat mode. The prenup is worthless anyway, he said when I finished. He has no idea what he signed regarding disclosure requirements. But that's not the point, is it? No, I agreed. The point is he tried. What do you need from me? Everything on Trevor Morrison. Complete financial history, criminal background if any, every person he's screwed over in business. And I need it by tomorrow. Consider it done. James paused. Sophia, I'm sorry. Your father would be proud of how you're handling this, but he'd also be sorry you had to. Dad taught me to play chess, not checkers, I said. Trevor's been playing checkers. My second call was to my assistant, Yuki, who worked for Chen, Capital, but who Trevor had never met. I need you to compile a list, I told her. Everyone on the wedding invitation list, every single person. I want names, email addresses, phone numbers, and social media handles. Is this about? Yes. I'm on it. My third call was to the plaza. This is Sophia Chen. I'm calling about the Chen-Morrison wedding on September 15th. Ms. Chen, how can we help you today? I need to add some guests to the walkthrough this afternoon. About 30 additional people. Can you accommodate? Of course. May I ask who the additional guests are? Business associates of my father's estate. They've expressed interest in seeing the venue for potential future events. Wonderful. We'll have everything prepared. My fourth call was to my father's old executive team, the board of Chen Capital. 12 people who'd known me since I was a child, who'd watched me grow up in boardrooms and learn finance at my father's knee. People Trevor didn't know existed. Emergency meeting, I told each of them. Today at 2 p.m. before the venue walkthrough at 4. I need you all there. Formal business attire. None of them asked why. They'd learned long ago that when a Chen called an emergency meeting, you showed up. By noon, I had Trevor's complete financial history spread across the dining table. It was worse than I'd thought. The $2 million in bad debt was just the beginning. He owed money to investors, contractors, even some people with addresses in jurisdictions where debt collection involved more than phone calls. Trevor Morrison wasn't just a con artist. He was a desperate con artist, and desperate people made mistakes. My phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. Babe, running late. Might miss the venue thing. You can handle it, right? Of course. He was probably with Madison, coordinating their next move. I texted back. No problem. Love you. The lie tasted like poison. At 2 p.m., I walked into the private conference room at Chen Capital headquarters in Midtown. 12 faces turned toward me, some of the most powerful people in private equity, venture capital, and corporate law. My father's legacy, now my responsibility. Thank you all for coming, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. My father's seat. My seat now. I have a situation that requires your expertise. I laid it all out. The relationship, the deception, the scheme. I showed them the messages, the financial records, the prenup. When I finished, the room was silent. Margaret Liu, our chief legal counsel, spoke first. He has no idea who you are. None. And you want to reveal it when? Today, at the venue walkthrough, in front of everyone who matters to him. Robert Chen, my uncle and the CFO, leaned forward. Sophia, are you sure? Public humiliation is one thing, but this could get messy. It's already messy, I said. He tried to con me. He's been lying for 18 months, and he's not just doing it to me. Look at his business record. He's been scamming people for years. Someone needs to stop him. What do you need from us? This from David Park, head of acquisitions. I need you to be there. I need the world to see exactly who Sophia Chen is, and I need you to help me make sure Trevor Morrison never does this to anyone again." Margaret smiled, thin and sharp. "Your father once told me that the best revenge is success, but he also said that sometimes the second best revenge is making sure everyone knows exactly how successful you are. Then let's make sure everyone knows." At 3:45 p.m., I arrived at the Plaza Hotel. The venue coordinator, Michelle, greeted me with a warm smile. "Ms. Chen, we're so excited for your walkthrough. Your additional guests have arrived. They're quite an impressive group." "They are," I agreed. Through the ornate doors, I could see the board members mingling, all in sharp suits and designer dresses. They looked exactly like what they were, billionaires and power brokers. "Is your fiancé joining us?" Michelle asked. "He'll be here," I said, checking my phone. Another text from Trevor. "On my way, 10 mins." I moved through the venue, greeting my father's old colleagues. To anyone watching, it might have looked like a business meeting that had wandered into a wedding venue, which in a way, it was. "Are you sure about this?" Uncle Robert asked quietly, coming to stand beside me near the grand windows overlooking Central Park. "He called me basic," I said. "He called marrying me an upgrade, like I'm a software package. Your father would have destroyed him." "I know. That's why I'm going to do it instead. Dad taught me better." At 4:03, Trevor arrived. I watched him walk through the doors, confident and casual in his expensive suit. He saw me first, smiled, started to wave. Then he saw the others. I watched his expression change. Confusion first, then something like nervousness. He didn't recognize anyone, but he could recognize power when he saw it. These people radiated it. He made his way over to me, his smile now uncertain. "Babe, who are all these people?" "Wedding guests," I said simply. "Didn't I mention? I invited some of my father's old friends." "Your father's friends?" His voice cracked slightly. "I thought your father was a small business owner." "He was," I said. "Small is relative, though." Before he could respond, Michelle appeared with champagne on a silver tray. "Ms. Chen, shall we begin the walkthrough? I thought we'd start with the grand ballroom, since that's where your ceremony will take place." We moved as a group through the plaza's stunning spaces. Michelle narrated with professional enthusiasm. "The grand ballroom can accommodate up to 450 guests for a seated dinner. The crystal chandeliers are original from 1907. The gold leaf detailing was restored in 450? Trevor interrupted, his voice tight. "Sophia, I thought we were doing something small, intimate." "Plans change," I said lightly. "Don't you think it's beautiful? It's too much. We can't afford this. Can't we?" Margaret Liu chose that moment to join us, champagne in hand. "Sophia, darling, this venue is perfect. Your father would have approved. He always did love the plaza. Remember his 50th birthday here?" Trevor's face went white. "His 50th birthday? Here?" "Oh, yes," Margaret continued, playing her part perfectly. "Richard threw quite a party. Was it 800 guests or 900? I can never remember." "Richard." Trevor looked at me. "Your father's name was Richard?" "Richard Chen," I confirmed. "Didn't I mention that?" I could see him calculating, processing. Richard Chen. Chen Capital. The pieces were starting to fall into place in his mind, and the result was clearly causing him distress. "Chen Capital," he said slowly. "The investment firm." "Private equity," Uncle Robert corrected, joining our conversation. "42 billion under management. I'm Robert Chen, CFO. You must be Trevor. Sophia's told us so much about you." Trevor looked like he might be sick. You're related to Sophia? She's my niece. Didn't she mention? I thought you two told each other everything. We do, Trevor managed. There must be some confusion. No confusion, I said softly. Just information you never bothered to ask about. You assumed I was nobody special, so I let you assume. Michelle, blissfully unaware of the tension, continued her tour. The terrace overlooks Central Park and is perfect for cocktail hour. We can accommodate up to 200 guests here before moving inside for dinner. Trevor grabbed my arm, pulling me slightly away from the group. Sophia, what the hell is going on? Chen Capital? Your uncle is the CFO of one of the biggest private equity firms in New York? One of the biggest in the world, actually, I corrected. And he's not just the CFO, he's also on the board, along with everyone else here. Everyone else? He looked around at the 12 powerful people examining the venue, making small talk, sipping champagne. Who are these people? The board of directors of Chen Capital, I said. My father's company. My company now, actually, since he died. Your company. He was gripping my arm too tightly now, and I could see Uncle Robert noticing, moving slightly closer. My company, I confirmed. The one I inherited when my father passed. The one you never asked about because you assumed I had nothing. You said you worked in marketing. I do. Chief Marketing Officer is technically a marketing position, isn't it? His face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, anger, fear, calculation. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask? I countered. In 18 months, you never once asked about my family beyond surface details. You never asked what my father did, where my mother was, whether I had siblings. You weren't interested in knowing me, Trevor. You were interested in what you thought you could get from me. That's not true. Thank God I'm upgrading, I quoted softly. Ring any bells? He froze. Absolute, complete stillness. I watched the color drain from his face. The wedding's just the exit strategy from basic to premium, I continued, my voice steady. 6 months married, then divorce with the prenup loophole. Should I go on? How did you... Shared cloud account, I said. You sent those messages to Madison at 2:47 this morning. They synced automatically, along with about 50 other messages detailing your plan to marry me, steal what you could, and leave. Trevor's jaw worked silently. Around us, the board members were pretending to admire the venue, but I could see them watching, waiting. Madison Pierce, I added. Real estate attorney, your girlfriend of 5 months, also in on the scheme. Should I have invited her to the walkthrough? I did consider it. Sophia, listen to me. No, I said, and my voice carried steel now. My father's steel. You listened to me. You targeted me because you thought I was weak. You thought I was basic. You thought I was an easy mark with a modest insurance payout you could exploit. I love you. You love what you thought I could give you. You love the idea of solving your $2 million in debt with someone else's money. You love not having to face the consequences of your failed business deals and your terrible decisions. 2 million. His voice cracked. How do you know about that? I know everything, I said simply. I've known for hours. I know about the investors you scammed. I know about the contractors you never paid. I know about the projects you abandoned. I know about Madison. I know about the prenup trap. I know it all. Trevor looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape route. We can talk about this, privately. Why? You didn't want to marry me privately. You wanted a big wedding at the plaza. So let's have it here. Let's have this conversation in this beautiful venue, in front of all these important people. I raised my voice slightly, just enough. Everyone, could you join us for a moment? The board members gathered around, forming a loose circle. Michelle, the venue coordinator, looked uncertain, clearly sensing something was wrong, but unsure whether to stay or go. Trevor and I have something to share, I announced. Trevor, would you like to tell everyone about your business situation? About the $2 million in debt? About Madison? Or should I? Sophia, please. Here's what's going to happen, I said, speaking over him. The wedding is canceled, obviously. The deposits are non-refundable, but that's fine. I'll donate the venue time to a charity. Something about women's financial literacy, I think. Very fitting. Trevor was shaking now. You can't. I can. And I am. The prenup you had me sign, worthless. My lawyers have already reviewed it. You failed to disclose your debts, which invalidates the agreement. Not that it matters, since there won't be a marriage. What about your debt? I smiled, cold. That's your problem, not mine. I'm sure Madison will help you figure it out. Oh wait, no, she won't. Because I'm also forwarding all your messages to her husband. Her what? Her husband, I repeated. Did she not mention she's married? To a very nice man named Christopher who works in pharmaceutical sales. They have 2 kids. Lovely family photos on Facebook. Trevor looked like he might actually faint. As for your business, I continued, I'd start preparing for bankruptcy. Several of your investors are planning to file suit. I know because some of them happen to be in this room. Small world, isn't it? David Park raised his hand slightly. I invested $400,000 in your Columbus Circle project, the one you abandoned. I'll be wanting that back. And I know 3 contractors you never paid, Margaret added. They're prepared to file liens. But beyond all that, I said, turning back to Trevor, here's what I really want you to understand. You called me basic. You said marrying me was an upgrade. You thought you were trading up from some nobody to some modest insurance payout. I stepped closer to him, close enough that only he could hear my next words. I'm worth $42 billion, I whispered. I run one of the most powerful private equity firms in the world. I could buy and sell you 1,000 times over, and you called me basic. I stepped back, my voice returning to normal volume. That's not anger, Trevor. That's just irony. Trevor's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Michelle, I said, turning to the venue coordinator, I apologize for the drama. As I mentioned, the wedding is canceled. Please donate the venue time to... I paused, thinking. Actually, is there a support group for women recovering from financial abuse? Let's give them a really nice event here. They deserve it. Of course, Ms. Chen, Michelle said, her professionalism unwavering despite the chaos. I'll arrange it. Excellent. Now, Trevor, you should leave. Security will help you if needed. Sophia, wait. He reached for me, but Uncle Robert stepped between us. The lady asked you to leave, Robert said quietly. I suggest you do so. Trevor looked around the circle of powerful, implacable faces. He was outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and completely outmatched. Whatever conman confidence he'd had when he walked in had evaporated. You're insane, he said finally, his voice desperate. You're all insane. No, I corrected. We're just very, very rich, and we protect our own. Trevor turned and stumbled toward the exit. I watched him go, this man I'd thought I might love, this man who'd seen me as nothing more than a stepping stone. When the ornate doors closed behind him, the tension in the room released like a breath exhaled. Well, Margaret said, raising her champagne glass. That was satisfying. Your father would have been proud, Uncle Robert said, putting a hand on my shoulder. Brutal, but elegant. I learned from the best, I said. Then, because the adrenaline was fading and reality was setting in, I added, excuse me for a moment. I made it to the plaza's ladies' room before the tears came. Not tears of sadness. I was surprised to realize I wasn't sad about losing Trevor. The tears were rage and relief mixed together, the emotional overflow of 18 months of deception finally exposed. I'd been so careful, so cautious, and still, I'd almost fallen for it. A knock on the bathroom door. "Sophia?" Margaret's voice. "May I come in?" "Yes." She entered, locked the door behind her, and handed me a tissue without comment. We stood there for a moment in silence. "You know," Margaret said finally, "your father once told me that the hardest part of having money isn't keeping it. It's knowing who actually loves you versus who loves your money. Did he ever figure it out? He married your mother, didn't he?" That made me smile despite the tears. My mother had been a kindergarten teacher when my father met her. She'd had no idea who he was, had actually rejected his first 3 dinner invitations because she thought his flashy car was compensating for something. "She died when I was 12, I said. "Sometimes I forget I had an example of what real love looks like." "You did. And now you know what fake love looks like, too. That's valuable information, painful as it is to acquire." I dabbed at my eyes, careful not to smudge my makeup too badly. "What happens now?" "Now?" Margaret considered. "Now you go back out there, finish the venue walkthrough like the professional you are, and then we all go to dinner at Fiancé and toast your father's memory. Tomorrow, you're having brunch with James to review the legal strategy for ensuring Trevor can't come after you for anything. And next week, you're giving the keynote at the Women in Finance conference, reminding everyone why you're the youngest self-made female billionaire in New York." "I'm not self-made. I inherited—" "You took your father's company from $30 billion to $42 billion in 2 years. You are absolutely self-made, inheritance or not. Now fix your makeup. We have a venue to finish touring, and honestly, the terrace garden is spectacular." We returned to find the rest of the board examining the outdoor ceremony space, genuinely interested now in the venue's features. "Sophia," David called out, "you should actually consider hosting the annual investor conference here. This space is remarkable." And just like that, we shifted from a canceled wedding to a business opportunity, because that's what we did. We pivoted, we adapted, we turned disasters into prospects. The walkthrough continued for another hour. Michelle showed us every corner of the plaza, and I took notes like I was actually planning an event, which I supposed I was, just not a wedding. As we wrapped up, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You'll regret this." Trevor, of course. Using a different phone, probably Madison's. I showed the message to Margaret. "Want me to handle it?" she asked. "No," I said. "I've got it." I typed back. "I regret nothing. Enjoy bankruptcy. Best wishes to Madison's husband. I've sent him the screenshots." Then I blocked the number. "Feel better?" Margaret asked. "Getting there." We left the plaza as a group, 12 powerful people and me, looking exactly like what we were, a board of directors conducting business, efficient, professional, untouchable. On the sidewalk, Uncle Robert pulled me aside. "You know he's going to try something else. Men like that always do." "Let him try," I said. "I have the best lawyers in New York, and more importantly, I have something he never will." "What's that?" "Actual integrity, and $42 billion. But mostly the integrity thing." He laughed and kissed my forehead. "Your father really would have been so proud. Terrifying, but proud." As I rode home in the car, not my modest Honda, but the Tesla I actually owned and kept garaged, I thought about the messages still on my phone, the evidence of Trevor's betrayal, preserved in screenshots. I thought about forwarding them to everyone on the wedding invitation list. It would be easy. One mass email, subject line, "Wedding canceled, here's why." But that felt too simple, too much like revenge without purpose. Instead, I drafted a different email. This one went only to the wedding invitation list, 145 people who'd been planning to celebrate Trevor and me. Dear friends and family, I'm writing to let you know that the wedding between Trevor Morrison and myself has been canceled. The venue, vendors, and all arrangements have been dissolved. For those who purchased gifts or made travel arrangements, please accept my sincere apologies for any inconvenience. If you'd like to redirect your gift intentions, I'm making a donation in honor of what would have been our wedding day to the National Network to End Domestic Violence. Thank you for your understanding during this private time. With love, Sophia. Short, dignified, final. The message about Trevor's actual crimes, his debts, his scheme, that would spread organically. Margaret would mention it to someone at a cocktail party. David would tell his friends in real estate. The story would move through New York's elite circles like wildfire, the way all good scandals do. But I wouldn't be the source. I would maintain the high ground. I was my father's daughter, after all. By the time I got home, my real home, the brownstone in the West Village that Trevor had never seen, it was past 8 p.m. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my private rooftop terrace overlooking the city, and called my best friend Hannah. "Did you do it?" she asked immediately. "I did it." And it was awful and satisfying and necessary, all at once. "Good," Hannah said firmly. "He deserved it. They all deserve it." Hannah knew. She'd been the one who'd found my mother crying in the garden after my father's death, overwhelmed by people suddenly pretending to be family friends. She'd been the one who'd helped me set up my fake identity, my modest persona. She'd been my ally in this experiment from the beginning. "What did Trevor say when he realized?" she asked. "Not much. Mostly he just looked terrified. Margaret said Dad would have been proud. Your dad would have been furious that you had to do it at all. But yes, proud of how you handled it." We talked for another hour, dissecting every moment, every expression, every small victory in the confrontation. By the time we hung up, I felt lighter. The engagement ring was still on my finger. I slid it off and examined it in the fading light. Small diamond, simple band. Trevor had presented it as meaningful minimalism. Now I saw it for what it was. Cheap. I set it aside and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Trevor was panicking. Calling Madison, probably. Trying to figure out his next move. Realizing that the woman he'd called basic was actually the worst person he could have possibly tried to con. My phone buzzed with emails, responses to my wedding cancellation announcement. Mostly supportive, some confused, a few asking if I was okay. I was okay. More than okay. For the first time in 18 months, I was exactly who I actually was, without pretense or disguise. Tomorrow, I would deal with the legal aftermath. I would meet with James and begin the process of ensuring Trevor couldn't touch me, couldn't claim anything, couldn't turn this into something it wasn't. But tonight, I sat on my rooftop and drank expensive wine and felt the weight of deception lift from my shoulders. "Thank God I'm upgrading," Trevor had written. He had no idea how right he was. I was upgrading from a relationship built on lies to a life lived in truth. And that, I thought, taking another sip of wine, was worth every moment of this disaster. The city glittered beneath me, full of lights and possibilities. Somewhere in those lights was my future, one without Trevor, without pretense, without playing someone I wasn't. I raised my glass to it. to upgrades, to truth, to being exactly who I'd always been, Sophia Chen, daughter of Richard Chen, CEO of Chen Capital, and absolutely nobody's basic anything. The next morning, I woke to 247 unread messages. I scrolled through them over coffee in my actual kitchen, all marble countertops and professional-grade appliances that Trevor had never seen. The messages ranged from concerned friends asking if I was okay, to distant relatives I barely knew offering support, to 3 voicemails from Trevor's mother that I deleted without listening to. But one message caught my attention. From Madison Pierce. "We need to talk. Coffee at Bluestone Lane in 30 minutes. Come alone." I almost laughed. The audacity was impressive, but curiosity won out over common sense. I texted back, "See you there." 28 minutes later, I walked into the cafe in my actual clothes, a Celine blazer, Louboutin heels, the kind of outfit I'd hidden in my closet for 18 months. Madison was already there, looking significantly less composed than her LinkedIn photos. Dark circles under her eyes, coffee cup trembling slightly in her hands. "You told my husband," she said as I sat down. No preamble, no greeting. "You participated in a scheme to defraud me," I replied calmly. "Consider it a proportional response." "I'm getting divorced." He took the kids to his mother's. "I might lose custody." "Good. Children shouldn't be raised by someone with such poor judgment and questionable ethics." Her face flushed. "You don't understand. Trevor said you were nobody. Just some girl with a small inheritance. He said it was easy money, that you'd never even notice." "I noticed everything," I interrupted. The fake meetings, the carefully calculated affection, the way he always wanted to know about my father's life insurance policy. I noticed all of it. I just wanted to see how far you'd both go. "You're a psychopath." "No, I'm careful. There's a difference." I leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen, Madison. You're going to cooperate fully with my legal team's investigation into Trevor's business dealings. You're going to provide every document, every email, every piece of evidence about his schemes. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll make sure every law firm in New York knows what you did. You'll never work in real estate law again. But if you cooperate, I'll write a letter to your husband's lawyer explaining that you were manipulated by a con artist. It won't save your marriage, but it might save your career and your custody arrangement." She stared at me, calculating. "That's it? Just cooperation?" "That's it. I'm not interested in destroying you, Madison. I'm interested in making sure Trevor can't do this to anyone else." "He already is," she said quietly. "There's another woman, someone named Jennifer, works in fashion. He's been texting her for 2 weeks, same lines he used on both of us." I pulled out my phone. "Tell me everything." By the time I left Bluestone Lane 40 minutes later, I had Jennifer's full name, her company, and screenshots of Trevor's messages to her. The pattern was identical. Compliments about her being real and different. Questions about her family's financial situation, the same smooth progression toward commitment. Jennifer Chen. No relation, but the shared last name had probably caught Trevor's attention. He was targeting another Asian woman, probably assuming another potential inheritance. I called James from the car. "We have another victim. Potential victim. I need you to reach out to her before Trevor gets too deep." "On it. How are you doing with all this?" "Honestly, I'm furious. Not heartbroken. I think I'm past that. Just angry that he's still out there hunting. We can stop him legally, but it takes time. Restraining orders, fraud, investigations." "I have a faster idea," I said. "Can you get me a meeting with the Real Estate Board of New York? I want to address their monthly luncheon." "Sophia, what are you planning?" Dad always said the best defense is a good offense. I'm going to make Trevor Morrison's name synonymous with fraud in every industry he could possibly work in. James was quiet for a moment. Your father would absolutely do the same thing. I'll set it up. 3 days later, I stood before 200 real estate professionals at the University Club, Trevor's industry, his hunting ground. Thank you for having me today, I began. I'm here to talk about fraud in real estate transactions, specifically a pattern I've recently encountered personally. I clicked to my first slide, not Trevor's name yet, just statistics about romance scams targeting high net worth individuals. These scams cost victims an estimated $1.3 billion annually. The perpetrators are sophisticated, patient, and often work within legitimate industries like real estate, law, and finance. Click. Next slide. Trevor's business record, with identifying information still redacted. This particular individual has a pattern. Failed projects in Columbus Circle, the Meatpacking District, and Williamsburg. Unpaid contractors, angry investors, and a debt load exceeding $2 million. I could see people in the audience pulling out phones, probably already trying to identify who I was talking about. He targets women, specifically women he believes have family wealth. He presents himself as successful, but his success is entirely financed by debt he cannot repay. He proposes marriage quickly, usually within 6 months. He requests access to joint accounts. He has his own lawyer draft prenuptial agreements designed to exploit loopholes. Click. Trevor's photo filled the screen. His name is Trevor Morrison. He's sitting in this room right now. The room erupted. Head swiveled. And there he was, 4th row, center, his face going from tan to gray in seconds. He'd come to this luncheon like he came to all of them, networking and hunting for his next opportunity. Mr. Morrison tried to defraud me, I continued over the noise. He failed because I have resources most of his victims don't. But there are others. I know of at least 2 other women he's currently targeting. So I'm here today to make sure everyone in New York real estate knows exactly who Trevor Morrison is and what he does. Trevor stood up, shouting something I couldn't hear over the crowd's reaction. Security was already moving toward him. I've provided a full dossier to the real estate board, I said. Complete financial records, evidence of fraud, testimony from contractors he's failed to pay. I encourage you all to review it. And I encourage you to warn your colleagues, your clients, and anyone else who might cross paths with Mr. Morrison. Trevor was being escorted out now, still shouting. Something about defamation, about lawyers, about how I'd regret this. I wouldn't regret this. The moderator took the microphone. Ms. Chen, that was certainly memorable. Do you have time for questions? I did. For the next 45 minutes, I answered questions about due diligence, red flags in business partnerships, and how to protect yourself from sophisticated fraud. I didn't mention the engagement, the wedding, or any personal details beyond the business facts. By the time I left, Trevor Morrison's name was trending on real estate industry Twitter. His photo was being shared in private investment groups. His career in New York real estate was effectively over. My phone rang as I walked to my car. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. You destroyed my life. Trevor's voice, rough like he'd been crying or screaming or both. You tried to destroy mine first, I said calmly. You just failed. I loved you. No, you didn't. You loved what you thought I could give you. There's a difference. I'll sue you. Defamation, emotional distress. With what money, Trevor? You're bankrupt. And everything I said in that room was factually accurate and backed by documentation. Sue me, please. Discovery will be fascinating. Silence on the line. Then, why? Why did you have to ruin everything? We could have been happy. You were going to leave me in 6 months. You said so yourself. Exit strategy, remember? I was just talking. I wouldn't have actually. Yes, you would have, because that's who you are. You're a con artist, Trevor. You've been one for years. I'm just the first Mark who was actually the hunter instead of the prey. You never thought I'd be someone who mattered. That was your mistake. You saw an Asian woman with a quiet job and assumed basic. You never looked deeper because you didn't think you needed to. That's what actually makes you basic, Trevor. Not me. You. I hung up before he could respond. That night, Uncle Robert took me to dinner at Le Bernardin. We didn't talk about Trevor. Instead, we talked about Q3 earnings, about a potential acquisition in Singapore, about my keynote speech next week. You handled this well, he said over dessert. Ruthlessly, but well. Did I? I pushed chocolate around my plate. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just walked away quietly and let him do it to someone else. Jennifer Chen, the next woman, the one after that. I guess not. Your father once told me that having power means nothing if you don't use it to protect people who can't protect themselves. You did that today. You protected every future victim Trevor might have found. At the cost of my privacy. Everyone knows now. About the engagement, about being fooled, about being human, Robert corrected. About trusting someone. There's no shame in that. The shame is all Trevor's. The next week blurred past. The keynote speech at Women in Finance. 3 board meetings, an interview with Forbes about young women in private equity, and through it all, messages kept coming. From friends checking in, from business contacts offering support, from women I'd never met, thanking me for warning them about Trevor. Apparently, he'd tried his scheme on at least 6 other women in the past 3 years. 2 of them had married him briefly before he disappeared with their savings. I'd just been the first one with enough resources to fight back. Jennifer Chen sent me flowers with a note. Thank you for saving me from making the worst mistake of my life. Coffee sometime? We had that coffee. She was lovely, smart, funny, genuine. Exactly the kind of person Trevor targeted because he knew she'd trust easily. We became friends, bonding over our shared experience of almost falling for the same lies. Trevor's social media went dark. His business website disappeared. Madison's cooperation led to criminal fraud charges being filed. He'd flee to Florida, I heard through the grapevine, trying to start over where no one knew his name yet. But the internet never forgets. One Google search of Trevor Morrison brought up articles about the real estate board incident. His reputation followed him everywhere. 2 months after the Plaza confrontation, I was finally able to think about it without anger. Just sadness at time wasted, at trust betrayed, but also gratitude for lessons learned. I took the modest engagement ring to a jewelry store. What can you do with this? The jeweler examined it. Small diamond, simple setting, maybe $800 retail value. Can you melt it down and make something new? Of course. What did you have in mind? I thought about it. A pin. Something I can wear on my blazer. Strong, simple, and entirely mine. The pin arrived 3 weeks later. A small phoenix rising, the diamond set as its eye. Rebirth from ashes. Transformation from pain. I wore it to the next board meeting. Margaret noticed immediately. New jewelry. Recycled, actually. From something that no longer serves me. She smiled, understanding. Your father had a ring made from your mother's engagement ring after she died. He wore it every day. Said it reminded him that love, real love, doesn't diminish when it changes form. Sounds like Dad. Sounds like his daughter. That afternoon, I got one final message from Trevor. Just 3 words. "I'm sorry, Sophia." I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to reply with something cutting, something that would make him feel as small as he tried to make me feel. But I didn't. I just blocked the number and deleted the message. He didn't deserve my anger anymore. He didn't deserve my time, my energy, my thoughts. He'd taken 18 months of my life. He wouldn't get another second. Instead, I opened my laptop and started writing an email to the board about our Q4 strategy. Chen Capital was expanding into sustainable energy investments. We had 3 major deals in progress and a pipeline worth billions. This was my actual life. Not wedding planning with a con artist, not pretending to be someone smaller than I was. Just me, doing the work my father had taught me to do, leading the company he'd built, being exactly who I'd always been. That evening, I stood on my rooftop terrace again, the city spread before me. The Phoenix pin caught the light as I raised a glass of wine. "Thank God I'm upgrading," Trevor had written. He was right. Just not the way he thought. I'd upgraded from deception to truth, from hiding to being seen. From the woman who pretended to be basic to the woman who owned her power completely. Somewhere in the city below, Trevor was facing the consequences of his choices. Madison was rebuilding her life. Jennifer was dating someone who actually valued her. And I was here, free and whole, and exactly where I belonged. The engagement was over. The wedding was canceled. The con was exposed. And I had never been happier. I thought about my father then, about what he'd say if he could see me now. Probably something like, "Took you long enough to stop hiding, kid." He'd be right about that too. But I wasn't hiding anymore. I was Sophia Chen, daughter of Richard Chen, CEO of Chen Capital, worth $42 billion, and nobody's upgrade project. I was just myself. And that, I'd finally learned, was more than enough. The city lights glittered like possibilities. Tomorrow I had meetings. Next week, another conference. Next month, we'd close the Singapore deal. But tonight, I just stood on my rooftop and felt grateful. For the lesson, for the escape, for the life I'd reclaimed. Trevor had tried to make me believe I was basic, that I needed upgrading, that I was less than I was. He'd failed, because you can't diminish someone who knows their own worth. And I knew mine. I raised my glass to the skyline one more time. "Here's to upgrades," I whispered to the night. "The real kind." Then I went inside, closed the door on the past, and stepped forward into whatever came next. Free, whole, and finally, completely myself. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.